You are now watching Color Me Crypto, Digital Cash Decoded. Like, share, comment, subscribe.
And if you enjoy the video, visit us on Patreon for exclusive content.
This video is for informational purposes only. Nothing presented herein constitutes financial advice. Viewers should seek counsel from a financial advisor prior to making any investments. Investing without proper planning or research can result in a complete loss of funds.
What up, what up? Let's hop right into the video. How to build a mining rig. So thanks for watching Color Me Crypto Digital Cash Decoded. What is mining? So mining is the process by which decentralized networks such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, what have you, verify transactions and introduce new coins into the network. So you have miners looking for a golden nonce to produce a target value. Nonce means number only used once. It's a random number, and miners essentially guess this number to produce what is called a target value, or a hash basically. It secures the blockchain with an encryption algorithm. Proof of work: you only have mining on proof of work networks, and the longest blockchain is preferred because the longest blockchain has the most work. It's competition based, or it can be you're working together in what is called a mining pool. We're gonna talk about that. And hash power measures speed. More hash power equals more profit. So that's that in a nutshell. Some things you want to think about before you start mining now are going to be your equipment costs, where you're going to put your miner. Do you want it indoors, outdoors, things like that. The electricity price, how much it's going to cost to run. On the right hand side of the screen, got some calculators there to show you how profitable it might be to mine. You can plug in, basically your electricity price, how much your cards are earning, and you can hash out how much it'll cost you to run your mining rig once you get it set up. You want to think about your daily profit, which is basically going to be what you earn mining minus the maintenance fees, your return of investment, things like that. And lastly, you want to think about how you're going to report it on your taxes, because the IRS does expect you to report your mining earnings as taxable income. So just think about that before you start mining. But we're going to hop right into this. You have four main miner types. There's some overlap sometimes, but it's basically all the same thing. You have CPU miners, not profitable at all. Don't even waste your time trying to mine with a CPU. You have USB mining. The devices are very expensive now because of the market cycle that crypto's in. So the hardware is very expensive, but they're not profitable at all. So the price doesn't justify how much you're earning. Your earnings won't justify that price. You have GPU miners, mining rigs. Those are the go-to standard right now. They're high performance, not as expensive as an ASIC miner, but they produce some good earnings, and you can pretty much do it yourself. ASIC miners, extremely expensive right now. You're gonna have a hard time trying to find one because a lot of them are sold out, more or less, pretty much. But they earn you some good profits if you have a recent model. Do not buy an old model of an ASIC and think you're going to make a lot of money, because you won't. So here's the grocery list. What you need: require motherboard, CPU, RAM, your power supply unit, and your GPU. That's what you need. That's all you need. Motherboard and a CPU, RAM, power supply, and a GPU. Optionally, if you want to have more than one GPU, you will need risers, and depending on your setup, you will need storage. Storage could go under required as well, but it just depends on what operating system you're running. So we're going to watch a quick video just showing a brief overview of all the components, and we'll get back to the actual presentation. What up? So here is a motherboard, Asus Tough Gaming X570. I'm going to show you basically the different connections on your motherboard for your mining rig. So we're going to start with the easiest one, which is the motherboard's main power supply. This is a 20 pin. I have an extra 4 pins right here just in case the motherboard in question is a 24 pin socket and not a 20. However, this is a 20, so I do not need the extra 4. Moving on, we have the CPU underneath the heatsink. You can't see it, but once you install your CPU, you will need to add cooling on top of it. This is an AMD. You might have an Intel. Just follow your motherboard's instruction manual on how to install the heatsink, as well as your CPU's manual as well, so that you don't damage any components. I have 1, 2 screw here, and then I have 3, 4 on the other side to just keep it down nice and tight, and that will ensure that my CPU is that the thermal paste on my CPU is fully conducted with the heatsink. This cable coming here, it is basically giving power to the fan. That's what lets it spin when it is powered on. This slot here, this is to power the CPU. And this cable right here, it's ashy as hell. This cable right here is your 8 pin, your 4+4. This is not to be confused with your 6+2 8 pin. You will damage your equipment if you try to plug that in. So just know your CPU right here. This one is not labeled. However, some power supplies will label it. But just know your 4+4, which equals 8, will go into your CPU power right there. That's what powers your CPU. And then this here is what powers the fan for the heatsink. So now moving on, we have our memory, our RAM, random access memory. Always follow your instruction manual, your motherboard manual on how you should configure it. They have a preferred configuration. And troubleshooting tip, if your device is not powering on, you might need to try just 1 stick of RAM, and that might help your particular issue. Here is a slot for your M2 drive if you're using one of those. I'm not. These are more fan connectors, more power for the fans. And then here's the bread and butter of everything. These are your PCIe slots. Let me zoom in. So these are your PCIe slots. This is where you will connect your GPUs. So this motherboard here can have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 different GPUs. Obviously, one might be connected onto either of these, and then I'll have some risers coming into the other ones to let me connect additional cards. Over here, you have your data connectors, your SATA. These are where you connect your hard drive or your solid state drive. That's how the data gets between your storage device and your motherboard. So here now, these prongs here, these like strange looking prongs here, this is what you pretty much use to power on your device. When it's in a computer, they have different like connector cables plugged in, but if you don't have it in a case like what I have here, you can use a knife or a paper clip, something metal and conductive to create a short between. It will vary depending on your motherboard, but you'll create a short basically, and that will power on your device. So moving on now, these are just some more data connectors. This L-shaped connector right here, that is for your data. That's what connects to your device here, your storage if you have a storage device. And then this is the power connector right here. So you're gonna have 2 connectors going to your storage if you're not using an M2 device, which will be these little L shape right here. That's the power. This connects to the motherboard, and then from the motherboard it goes right here. So that's how that works. So you have your main power, your memory, your CPU, as well as the heat sink, your CPU, your 4+4, and then your PCIe slots where you will install your GPU. To power the GPU, you will use these. You will use a 6+2, or some GPUs might only need a 6 depending on what type of GPU you're using. But you never want to use, and sometimes it'll say PCIe, sometimes it'll say VGA. but you basically never want to plug this or try to plug it into your CPU slot, because 4 plus 4 is 8, 6 plus 2 is 8. Just don't confuse the two. Your 6 plus 2 PCIe will always go into your GPU. And I have so right here, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, and then 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. These are what power your graphics cards that you will use for mining. So let's hop into the video. So now again, just looking at the power supply, what we talked about earlier, our 20 plus 4, that is the main power for your motherboard, your 24 pin. Your 4 plus 4 for your CPU, your 6 plus 2 PCIe for your graphics card. This is another 8. This is a 8-pin PCIe. This could also be used for a graphics card. Your SATA, remember this is for your hard drive or your solid state drive. Molex, you don't really use these too much, but if you have a mining specific motherboard like a ASRock or something like that, you may use these, or you may see these connectors on the motherboard to give the cards additional power. And then this connector, no one uses floppy anymore. So on the power supply now, this is where you'll connect your motherboard, where you see SATA 1, 2, 3. That's where you'll connect your SSD or your hard disk drive, whatever you're using. Peripherals, that's just an extra set there for maybe your risers. CPU, obviously, CPU 1, CPU 2, that would be for your central processing unit. And then VGA 1, 2, 3, and 4, this is where you would connect your 6 plus 2 or your 8 pin. You have three motherboard types, but here's the two that you really should concern yourself about with mining. You have your fully modular, and then you have your semi-modular. So fully modular is just as it sounds. You can pick pretty much any connection you want. And semi-modular, you have some limitations on what you can and can't connect. So that's PSU in a nutshell. For mining, I would say you want a 750 watt or at least 850 watt if you want to use multiple cards especially. So here's a motherboard. Again, your 20 plus 4 pin. Your PCIe that goes here. We already touched on that, not going to beat a dead horse. Your RAM slots again. Your RAM slots, this is your 20, I think that's a 20 pin, but basically that's where your power connector will go. And then one right here, that is where your CPU will get its power from. So you guys already know all that. We're gonna move right along. So now for your CPU, it must be compatible with your motherboard socket. This is very important because you do not want to buy a CPU that is not compatible with your motherboard. Some people start their rig at the CPU, they start their computer at the CPU. Me personally, I start at the motherboard. That's why I put the motherboard first, because I always choose my motherboard first, and then I go from there what CPU and other stuff I will be getting for. So you have two popular brands. The most popular is you have two popular brands, the most popular being Intel and AMD. In the video earlier, that was an AMD. Intel is good as well. It just depends on what your budget is, what's available to you in your area, things like that. It's potato to me at least. And then you have the two main types. This is the most important part for your CPU. You need to know whether or not your motherboard supports land grid array or pin grid array. So land grid array is a flat surface. When you're touching the bottom of your CPU, it literally just rests down flat into the socket. Pin grid array now, that has these metal prongs on the central processing unit that will fit into the socket. And again, you shouldn't force anything. You shouldn't have to force anything. If it does not feel like it fits automatically, it probably doesn't fit and you don't want to damage anything. Just look again, check, make sure you have the right component, and if it isn't the right component, just return it, get the correct one. And again, your 4 plus 4 right here to power your CPU. So this is very important now. Your RAM, you have some main types: DDR, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4, and it's just showing you where the little notch is. This isn't too important knowing the differences between them. You just need to know, again, Your RAM must be compatible with the motherboard you are using, and your motherboard's manual will tell you what RAM it supports, and that's that. It's pretty much you just have to follow the motherboard. That's why I always start at the motherboard. It makes it easier for me when I'm deciding what CPU and what RAM I will get. But again, these are just the different types of RAM, and you'll notice where the notch is. If you buy a RAM module that is not compatible with your motherboard, it will not even fit into the slot. And if you try to force it in, again, you will damage something. So just make sure that the RAM you are purchasing is what your motherboard prescribes. So your storage now, again, depending on your setup, you might not need storage. Again, we have our connector. This is the SATA connector. You have your HDD and your SSD. There's also M2. That's the newest, latest, and greatest. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to either be using a hard disk drive or a solid state drive. So the benefits for a hard disk drive: 1, you get a lot more space for a lot cheaper. However, it's not as fast. For mining, you don't really need speed for the for your storage device. But if you do want a lot of space on that device, consider a hard disk drive because they are cheaper and you get more space for less. The SSD now is super quick. It's very lightweight also. It's not gonna take up a lot of space, and it's very fast. And here is just a little chart showing you basically that the SSD has faster read and write speeds than your typical hard disk drive. So just keep that in mind. And also hard disk drive, it's susceptible to like fall damage and things like that. So if you fall and you mess up that actuator arm or any of these components here in the assembly here, it may prevent your card from reading if you maybe drop it or something. So just keep that in mind when you're positioning your rig. The graphics card now, just close up now, we have our 8, our 6+2 right here, and then we have a 6. It doesn't require that extra little 2 prongs. And then here on the right hand side, it's just showing you the connections. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. You want to connect, your GPU last, the latest and greatest. And this is the heart of your mining rig. This is what will basically do all of the work, all of the computations. And remember, never confuse your 6+2, which is used on the GPU, with your 4+4 for the CPU. 6+2 GPU, 4+4 CPU. So now if you want to use multiple GPUs, you will need a riser. So you have risers, they're needed for multi-GPU support. They connect to the PCIe. This thing right here, that is what will go into the motherboard, where the GPU would go if you had a GPU in there instead. You have your USB cable connecting there, a serial connection to that. And it can be powered or non-powered. That's where you have this come in. That's the power right there. So you do want to get a powered one. They're typically considered better. What up? So we finished setting up our mining rig, or our GPU miner, and we now want to actually start mining. So here I have NiceHash pulled up, nicehash.com. This is what I personally use at the moment, but I will show you some other options that are available to you if you are using a Windows device. Obviously, some of this will change depending on your operating system, but I'm choosing Windows because, 1, it's what I'm running on my current setup, and it is also the most popular out there. However, I will probably show you guys another setup on my Linux machine maybe. But basically, here's my NiceHash account pulled up. You will need an account if you want to run the NiceHash mining software, but it's very easy. You just set up your wallet, and then you copy and paste your wallet address into the mining software, and you are up and running. It is very easy. So here's the status page, status.nicehash. You can use this maybe if your rig goes down and it's not working, to see if the status of anything, the status of the hash power. So how NiceHash works is you are basically leasing out, you're selling hash power, and you're getting compensated in Bitcoin. So your GPU might be mining all these crazy altcoins. Maybe it's mining Ethereum, maybe it's mining Ethereum Classic, maybe it's mining Stellar, Cosmos, whatever. You're gonna get compensated in Bitcoin, however. So here's the program. It's very easy. You literally go to their website's download page and you download the nice hash miner, and you're up and running. So here are my hardware. When you first start it, it will ask you for your wallet address. You'll probably have to sign in, if I recall correctly, and then you basically start mining. It will benchmark your devices. Here it says pending benchmarks 0. That means it's already determined what the most profitable algorithm for each of my cards is. And here are plugins. These plugins are literally just different miners. Notice it has Nano Miner, NB Miner, LOL Miner. These are literally the software that control each card. Each card will have a different algorithm if they are different models. So, you know, GPUs, my worker's name, and all of that information there. I will actually, can I close this out? It's being slow, but anywho, here is the LOL miner. So I downloaded LOL miner separately. This is the LOL miner configuration set for unmineable.com. Let me open up a batch file to show you very quickly how it works. So edit. So here is the mining pool. You want to set your mining pool. You have a URL and then a port number. Then you set the wallet. You copy and paste your wallet's address in there, and you give it a name. LOL Miner Worker is the name of it. And then you tell LOL Miner to open up with this algorithm and go to this pool, which is up here, and use this wallet. So that's basically how the batch file works. Let me open up another one. I set this one up recently. Let me show you. So very simple. Open up lolminer.exe, use this algorithm, use this URL and this port number as the mining pool. This is the user. The user wants to mine Polygon or Matic. Send it to this address, and the worker's name is H81. And here's just some extra stuff on the end. But that is the batch file. The batch file gives the instructions to the LOL miner on how to work. That is it in a nutshell. You want to set up your miner. In a nutshell, let me just retouch on some things. So you have your hardware and your software. So hardware is your mining rig. And then the software is your miner. So you have your rig here. Let's see how I can draw this thing. So this is your rig or whatever. It's plugged into your router. This is going to be a poorly drawn router. Those are your GPUs. So you have your mining rig, and you're going to use a software, which is your miner. To basically connect to a mining pool. So this is a mining pool. So in that software, in your miner, you're going to specify the pool you want to join, which would be maybe www.pool.com. And you want to give it a port number to talk to, so I'll just use this one for, I think this is nice hash or whatever. So you're gonna give it a URL, and then you're gonna give it a port number. So port. So URL and port. You're gonna have the user, and this format can change. This format is different. It just depends. You're gonna have your address. So you know your address would be some long random string of characters, you know. and then it's going to be like something like maybe dot worker. This is going to be your worker's name, and you know, you might have to specify an algorithm. So algo would maybe be SHA-256, like what's on the Bitcoin network. So that is how it works. You have your hardware, which is your rig, and then you have your software, which is, you know, the application on your computer. It's going to connect you to a mining pool. So this is pool.com, port 333 or whatever, 3333. And you're going to basically be connecting with a bunch of other people, and you're working together to find the next block and verify transactions. So hope that makes sense. Hope you understand how mining works. Hope you understand how to start building your rig. And thank you for watching the video. Much love. Peace.
To support this channel, please donate through Cashapp, PayPal, or Venmo. Donations fund the creation of new content.